I'm really afraid a lot of people are going to skip over Kero Blaster, and I think that's a big mistake. I know the game is really retro looking, it's even old school for old school graphics, and I think that right there is going to push people away, but hopefully I can steer some people back towards the game. I played Kero Blaster when it originally came out on iOS back in, I think it was 2014, because I'm a big fan of Pixel. Pixel is the creator, and if you don't know, Pixel is the same man who made Cave Story. Cave Story and Kero Blaster might not play the same, but they do share a lot of similarities. And most importantly, in my mind, they share the one thing that made Cave Story stand out above the rest of the games in the same genre. Cave Story has a lot of heart, and so does Kero Blaster. The heart in Kero Blaster comes from the game's characters, its settings, and the story. At first glance, there might not be a really deep or sophisticated story, but there is something really interesting going on here. If you really pick apart what people are saying and you really take a deep look at what this story is trying to do, you get something really engaging. It's actually really impressive. It's the same kind of experience I had with Cave Story. On the surface, a very easy to understand story, but if you really take a look at it, you take a magnifying glass to the whole experience, you get some really cool details, you get some really cool thoughts, and it's the kind of game that sticks with you for a few days, and you're like, wow, I really like the way it approached this topic. I don't want to spoil things, so I'm going to give you a very base level of what's going on in the game story-wise. You play as a frog, and this frog is some sort of like monster buster, ghost buster, exterminator, something like that. You're going out on these jobs to clear out these parts of the world that have these weird monsters in them. And as you go from job to job, you see that these creatures are getting more and more plentiful. They're really taking over the places that you visit, and obviously, as you get further into the game, you get more difficult challenges to take them out. You also learn that as you play, your offices, when you go back to your office at the end of a mission, you see that your office is a little bit under attack with these things as well. So it's all about figuring out where they're coming from, what they're doing, why they're there, and like I said, I don't want to spoil things, but there is some really deep, interesting stuff here, and I really liked it. And through this story, which isn't very verbose, there's not tons of dialogue or anything like that. Much like Cave Story, the story is really told through the characters and the settings themselves, and the little bits of dialogue that are in there help bring it all together. You get something that is really cool to experience. The very, very core of Kero Blaster is similar to Cave Story. So with Cave Story, you were a little character that ran around and shot a whole bunch of things, and you upgraded your gun. In Kero Blaster, you're this little character that runs around and shoots a bunch of things, and you upgrade your guns. So same kind of mechanic, but the difference is Cave Story was a big Metroidvania title, and Kero Blaster is level-based. So you go in, you make your way through a level, you fight a boss at the end of each level, and then you move on to the next. So it's much more straightforward, much more basic gameplay experience, but I don't mean that in a bad way at all. It's a lot of fun. One of the big differences in Kero Blaster is it throws a ton of enemies at you. As you progress through the game, you're like getting a handle on things, and there's not anything too crazy going on. But the later levels, they really throw a lot at you, and your weapon upgrades can really come in handy. Now, how you upgrade weapons is up to two things: how much money you collect when you're playing through a level, and what you want to spend them on. So you can upgrade, you'll get different weapons as you defeat bosses, and then you can upgrade those weapons as you see fit. They have certain levels that you can go through, so you could pour all your cash into upgrading a single weapon and stick with that one throughout the whole game. Or you could spread upgrades throughout your weapons depending on how much cash you have. So you can have like all guns that are level 2, or a couple that are level 4, and a couple that are level 2. And you swap between them on the fly, and obviously there's going to be certain enemies that get more damage from a certain type of weapon. There's going to be weapons that you use that are better in certain circumstances than others. Like some weapons you can upgrade to bounce all around the room, and other ones shoot better underwater, and some are fire, so they melt ice enemies and stuff like that. So you just change between them on the fly, and that's one of the most fun parts of the game, upgrading your weapons and seeing how it handles the different enemies that come at you, because once you're really in the game and you're switching on the fly and taking out all different kinds of creatures, you start to learn, okay, this guy best reacts to this weapon and stuff like that. And it's just a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun to mix them up as you're playing through. Kero Blaster handles weapon fire in an interesting way, and it's probably going to throw a lot of gamers for a loop right off the bat. It did it with me when I played on mobile, and then to tell you the truth, I completely forgot it acted like this, and it threw me for a loop when I played the Switch version. So in most run-and-gun platformers, You shoot in a direction you are facing. So you run to the right, you shoot to the right. You run to the left, you shoot to the left. Kero Blaster isn't like that. You run to the right and you shoot to the right. Now, as long as you're holding the shoot button, whatever direction you are facing when you hold the shoot button, that's the direction you will continue shooting. So, hold the right button and hold the shoot button, you'll be shooting right. If you continue to hold the shoot button and then hold left, you will walk to the left and continue to shoot right. You have to let go of the shooting button and then hit it again to shoot in the left direction. So, this is great for Kero Blaster because you will have lots of enemies coming at you from one direction, and you can shoot to the direction they're coming from and run away from it at the same time, rather than having to do what you do in other games, which is shoot a little bit, back up and run away and can't shoot, and then turn towards the enemy and shoot again. It's going to throw you for a loop, like I said. It's going to take a little bit to get used to, but it definitely does make sense for this type of game. That's what the core of Kero Blaster is. You run, you gun, and you jump. That's really all there is to it. As long as you're cool with an old school approach to gameplay, then you should be fine here. I really like it. I really think it's done very well. Every level has a boss fight at the end, and the bosses, they're not super challenging. There's maybe one or two that'll give you a little bit of trouble, but they're still really fun to take on because the boss designs are crazy and weird and unique, and there's even some funny ones in there without spoiling things. So it is interesting to see like what boss is going to be waiting for you at the end of a level. And then on top of that, the level design itself is, I think, fantastic. The levels have a great flow to them. It's not like, you know, here's a snow level, you're out in the snow. The snow level like starts out on the side of a mountain and you make your way into this facility where there's an issue with like the air conditioner in there, or the freezer controls, I guess I should say, and you make your way through the building and then back out the other side of the building. I love when levels have a nice progression like that. To tell you the truth, I feel the level design is one of the strongest elements because it breathes life into the game's story. I feel like the levels themselves are an important part of the story. Obviously, any game is going to have the story dictate where what the level design is going to be, but I feel like a lot of games are just cookie cutter, like here's the jungle level, here's the outdoor level, or jungle and outdoor, here's the city level, stuff like that. But I feel like these level designs were picked because they were important to the story. It wasn't just trying to fill a quota. So hopefully you feel the same way about it, because I think these level designs are some of the strongest parts of Kero Blaster. Hopefully you're getting the idea that Kero Blaster is a fun and charming experience, and I can't talk about the charm of the game without mentioning the game's soundtrack. Cave Story has a fantastic soundtrack, and Kero Blaster is no different. There's a lot of really fun and bouncy songs. There's a lot of songs that are melancholy and sullen. It's just, the songs fit with levels so well. It's definitely a soundtrack that I've listened to it so many times over the years since it originally came out. I used to fire up the iOS version just so I could hear some of the songs. There really are some great tracks in here. And again, that's not surprising coming from Pixel, who did the music for Cave Story along with creating the whole game himself, and he did the music here too. So this is definitely a game that you'll want to make sure the volume is up for, and you probably should play with headphones on because it's just that enjoyable. The one big knock that everybody's going to have against Kero Blaster is the game's length. It is not a long game. You can definitely finish the whole game within an hour. I'd put it very close to the hour mark your first time through, but an hour is an hour. I know a lot of people are going to hear that and be like, well, that's a waste of my money. I want to stress that there are games that come out that are very short and they add like New Game Plus or something like that, and that's a reason to go back in. I never really find that like a compelling reason to go back in, but with Kero Blaster there is definitely a reason to go back in. The game is full of secrets and you flat out can't get to some of them the first time you play through. There's no way to do it because you're going to gain things throughout the first playthrough that'll allow you access to new areas the second time you play it through. Completely new things that will change elements of the story. That's all I'm going to say. I don't want to ruin it. And again, this second playthrough isn't going to take you a long time, no. But I loved the first playthrough so much that I was really excited to go back through the second time because there were areas I saw in the game where I was like, I can't get up there. I wonder if I'll be able to get up there later. And you get something and you're like, oh, now I want to see what's on that spot. I want to see what's up on that platform that I couldn't reach before. So I was really excited to play through the second time. And like I said, it's not just playing through and seeing like, here's a new treasure chest with some money in it or something like that. There's definitely other things going on here. Still, with all that said, the game is not going to be a long experience. It's a game that doesn't overstay its welcome. I would certainly, I want more of it. I definitely would like to see double the amount of levels or something like that, but it is a short and very sweet experience. I absolutely love Kero Blaster, I really do. It's such a charming experience, it's very endearing, it's full of heart, the gameplay is very enjoyable and addictive. It's just top to bottom, I feel it's a really great game. It's got a handmade feel, and that's very nice to get in an industry that has a lot of very loud, very over-the-top games filled with all these crazy set pieces and the latest graphical technology and orchestrated soundtracks. There's nothing wrong with those games at all. I play those games. I love all the big budget games too, but it's nice to see something on the flip side that's very, I guess, artisan in a way. It's just really, it's like a palate cleanser. I really enjoy this experience. Is it worth $10? I can tell you for myself, it certainly is. I do not regret the money spent on the game at all. This copy was provided for review, so I didn't spend money on it. But I did buy the original when it came out on mobile, and like I said, I loved it. I was so excited to see that this game was coming to Switch, because I want more people to experience it. I just know that, like I said, the first run-through is going to take around an hour somewhere. With the extra content, you'll get maybe another hour or two out of it, and that's at most, I think. And people are going to say that's not worth their $10, because a lot of people look at gameplay hours and say, $10 is worth 5 gameplay hours to me, and if it's less than 5 hours, then I'm not spending my money. I'm not here to say that's right or wrong, because I can't say that. All I can tell you is, for me, I believe it is worth your money. As long as you know what you're getting into, and you know that it's going to be a short experience, I really think you'll enjoy Kero Blaster. Like I said, it doesn't overstay its welcome, it leaves you wanting more, and it's going to be a game I imagine that you'll go back to and run through a few times, just because there's some kind of charm in there that keeps you coming back. Hey guys, RMC here from Go Nintendo. If you like what you saw in the video, why don't you give us a thumbs up and maybe even subscribe? We'd love to have you. If you want to see what else we're up to, you can check out GoNintendo.com for 24-hour Nintendo news. You can visit us on Facebook at facebook.com/GoNintendo. You can check us out on Twitter at twitter.com/GoNintendoTweet. And we're even over on Instagram at instagram.com/GoNintendo. I put all the links in the description just to make it easier for you guys to follow. Thanks a lot.